I'm not a fool. My fiancée claimed her male best friend was like a sibling at a gathering. She perched on his lap and quipped, "Look, this is cozier than being with my fiancé." The crowd chuckled. I just gave a faint smile. That night, she discovered the true limits of comfort. Let's get one thing straight from the outset. I'm nobody's pawn. As a structural engineer, my life and career revolve around identifying stress points, load-bearing supports, and the stability of foundations. I spot weaknesses before they turn into catastrophic failures. For the past 6 months, I've been observing fractures spreading through my relationship with my fiancée, Sarah, and I've been quietly drafting a plan for its dismantling. Her name is Sarah. She's 28. The most significant fracture, the one that jeopardized the entire framework, was her male best friend, Ethan. When we first started dating 2 years ago, I bought the narrative she pitched. "He's like family to me," she'd say, a phrase that deserves a place in textbooks as a universal red flag, for I'm keeping my options open. At 34, I've seen enough to know better, but I chose to trust her. For the first year and a half, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. But 6 months ago, after our engagement, something changed. The brotherly behavior intensified. It was the late-night messages she'd hide from me. It was Ethan being her plus one at a work function because I was tied up with a project deadline. It was his input on our wedding venue carrying more weight than mine. It was the way he'd casually rest his arm across her chair at dinners, his fingers grazing her shoulder. A subtle claim of possession he knew I couldn't challenge without seeming like a jealous, overbearing partner. So I didn't confront it. I observed, I cataloged. The engineer in me took charge. I began quietly disentangling my life from hers, not emotionally at first, but financially and legally. I ensured the lease on our apartment, due for renewal, stayed solely in my name. I opened a new personal bank account and began redirecting most of my savings there, leaving just enough in our shared account to keep up the pretense of a joint future. I wasn't being paranoid. I was preparing for a controlled implosion. I knew it was coming. I just needed one final, undeniable piece of evidence to justify executing the plan. Last Saturday night, she handed it to me on a silver platter. We were at a housewarming party hosted by friends. It was a lively evening with a large crowd of familiar faces. I was chatting with some guys when I noticed Ethan settle into a large armchair across the patio. Moments later, Sarah approached. Instead of finding another seat, she turned and sat directly on his lap, leaning back against his chest as if it were her personal throne. His arms wrapped around her waist, hands resting on her hips with an ease that churned my stomach. The conversation around me faded. I felt the weight of everyone's eyes shifting toward me, waiting for my reaction. Tom, the host and a close friend, shot me a look of sheer dismay. Sarah caught me watching. She had the nerve to flash a bold, defiant grin and call out for all to hear, "See, James? Way cozier than sitting with my fiancée." A few people let out uneasy laughs. Ethan smirked at me from beneath her, his expression screaming, "I've won." In that moment, there was no pain, no fury, just a cold, sharp click in my mind. The final piece of evidence was secured. The structural failure was confirmed. It was time to initiate the plan. I returned her smile with a blank, calm one of my own. I raised my glass in a small toast. "Whatever feels right for you," I said, my tone perfectly even. Then I turned back to my conversation, as if I hadn't just witnessed the public execution of our engagement. Internally, the demolition sequence had already started. For the rest of the night, I was a shadow. I made small talk, laughed at quips, refilled my drink, but my mind was elsewhere, running through a mental checklist. On the drive home, Sarah was buoyant, high on the attention. She rambled about the party, how much fun she'd had, oblivious to the fact that she was sitting next to a man who had already erased her from his future. We got home just after 1 a.m. She yawned, said she was exhausted, and headed to bed. "Don't stay up too late working," she said, tossing me an air kiss. "I won't," I replied. I waited until I heard the bedroom door click shut. Then I went to my study and began the demolition. I wasn't working. I was dismantling us. Update 1, ***, between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. on Sunday, I was more focused than I'd been in years. There was no emotion, only procedure. A series of tasks executed with precision. First, I secured the perimeter. I logged into our building's online portal and deactivated her key fob permanently. Then I reset the code on the smart lock for our front door. The physical space was now mine alone. Next, I cut the financial ties. I accessed our joint bank account and transferred nearly all of my contributions, about 98% of the balance, into my personal account, leaving her exact contributions behind, down to the penny. Then I logged into my primary credit card, where she was an active authorized user. I reviewed the charges from the past month: brunches with friends, a new designer purse, a spa day with Ethan's sister. I paid the balance in full, then clicked Remove User and reported her card as stolen. Her main source of funds was gone. Finally, I handled her immediate belongings. I knew tossing her out outright could lead to claims of theft, so I had to be strategic. I slipped into the bedroom where she slept, a faint smile on her face, perhaps dreaming of the comfort Ethan offered. Moving silently, I gathered her essentials: her laptop, work phone, main purse with her wallet and keys, her phone charger, and a small jewelry box with pieces I'd given her. I packed them into her favorite travel bag and placed it by the front door, ready for her exit. The rest of her belongings, piles of clothes, shoes, and miscellaneous items, could be dealt with later. This was about a clean, swift removal. At 5 a.m., I sent a single text to our mutual friend Tom, the party host. "Hey, sorry for the awkwardness last night. Just letting you know Sarah and I are done." I ended it. "If you hear any wild stories, know the truth. She made her choice in front of 50 people. Tom was a good guy. He'd spread the accurate version of events, shielding me from the inevitable smear campaign. Then I put my phone on airplane mode and went for a run as the sun rose. When I returned, the apartment was silent. I made coffee and waited. Around 10 a.m., Sarah emerged looking groggy. "Morning," she mumbled, avoiding my gaze. Perhaps a small part of her sensed she'd crossed a line. "My phone's dead. Can you grab my charger from my purse?" "I can't," I said calmly. "Your purse is by the door in a bag with your other essentials." She frowned, puzzled. "What are you talking about? Why's it there?" "Because that's where you're going," I said, my voice flat and emotionless. "You don't live here anymore," she laughed, a short, incredulous sound. "Okay, I see, you're upset about last night. I told you it was a joke. You're being a bit dramatic, aren't you?" "No," I said, standing to face her. "I'm being rational. You sat on another man's lap in front of our friends and announced you were more comfortable with him than with me. That's not a joke. That's a public declaration of your priorities. I accept it. My priority is not being in a relationship with someone who disrespects me so openly." Her face paled as she realized I was serious. "You're ending things like this. After 2 years. "The relationship ended last night," I corrected. "This is just the logistics. Your key fob is disabled, the door code is changed, your credit card is canceled, and the joint account is divided. Your essentials are by the door. I suggest you call the person you're most comfortable with to pick you up. You have until noon." The tears and begging began then, a predictable, pitiful display. She was sorry, she loved me, it was a mistake, she wasn't thinking. I stood unmoved. The engineer in me had already assessed the relationship's stress limits, and she'd exceeded them. The structure was condemned. Ethan arrived an hour later, playing the outraged protective brother. He stormed in after Sarah let him through, trying to intimidate me. "You're a real piece of work, you know that?" he said, puffing up. I didn't even look at him. I just stared at Sarah. "The clock's ticking. At noon, he's trespassing." Then I turned to Ethan. "Just so you know, the hallway security cameras record audio. Any threats you make will go straight to the police." His tough guy act collapsed instantly. He was a coward like all bullies. He muttered something, grabbed her bag, and they left. As Sarah walked out, she turned back. "What about my other stuff?" she cried. "Email me to schedule a supervised pickup," I said. "You'll get 1 hour with a police escort to ensure a civil transfer." "Goodbye, Sarah." I closed the door, activated the smart lock, and the silence I'd craved for 6 months finally filled my home. Update 2. Asterisk: the days after the eviction were a masterclass in damage control and narrative manipulation, orchestrated by Sarah and her allies. I was ready for it. A structure doesn't collapse without debris. The first wave was the emotional plea from her mother. The voicemails followed a pattern: fake concern, tearful begging, then subtle threats. I saved them all but didn't respond. The second wave was a social media onslaught. Vague, pointed posts from her friends about the silent pain of emotional abuse and men who punish women for having male friends. Ethan, in a move dripping with hypocrisy, posted a photo of him and Sarah with the caption, "Some connections are unbreakable. Always here for my sister." It was a performance meant to paint me as a possessive, unstable villain. They thought they owned the story. They were mistaken. I didn't argue or post my own version. Instead, I deployed a single, devastating piece of evidence that rendered their campaign irrelevant. I'd known for months their relationship wasn't just platonic. The proof was in a backup of Sarah's phone on my home server. She'd always been paranoid about losing data, so she'd asked me to back it up months ago. At the time, it was a favor. Now it was my weapon. I spent an evening sifting through the data. It was worse than I'd imagined. Messages between her and Ethan were filled with private jokes mocking me. They called me the draftsman because I was building the life she planned to live with him. Then I found the video, a short selfie from a weekend trip she'd taken with Ethan, which she'd claimed was a childhood friend's reunion. In the video, filmed in their hotel room, Ethan is shirtless in the background. "So, the draftsman's almost done with the wedding plans," Sarah says to the camera, smirking. "He's so predictable, it's almost endearing. He thinks he's building our future," she pans to Ethan. "He has no idea he's just the architect. You're the one who'll live in the house." They laugh and she blows a kiss to the camera. This wasn't just disrespect. It was a calculated scheme to use my stability and income, then discard me once the project was complete. I trimmed the video to its most incriminating 30 seconds and created an anonymous file-sharing link. I sent it in 2 anonymous emails. The first went to the HR department at Sarah's company, where she worked as a project coordinator. The subject line, "Regarding the integrity of a project coordinator." The email was concise and professional. "To whom it may concern, I believe this video, recorded by your employee, Sarah, raises serious concerns about her character, judgment, and ethical behavior. I thought you should be aware." The second email went to Ethan's fiancée, Olivia. "Yes, fiancé, I'd done my homework. Ethan was engaged to a woman from a prominent family, a marriage critical to his career at his family's investment firm." The subject line, "Something you should know about Ethan." The email was brief. "Olivia, I'm deeply sorry to share this with you. You deserve the truth." I hit send on both. I'd planted the charges deep in their lives' foundations. The explosion wasn't long in coming. Final update, ***, 4 months have passed. The dust has settled, and the landscape of my life and theirs has been permanently reshaped. The revenge wasn't loud or immediate, but its impact was devastating and irreversible, like a meticulously planned demolition. Tom, my friend, kept me updated on the fallout. The video worked exactly as intended. At Sarah's company, an internal review was launched. Her role involved managing high-stakes client projects, and a video of her admitting to a long-term plan to deceive her fiancé was a major liability. She wasn't fired, but was demoted to a low-level, internal role with no client interaction or career prospects. Her professional life was effectively over. For Ethan, the consequences were even harsher. Olivia, his fiancée, didn't react quietly. She ended the engagement and sent the video to her father, a major client of Ethan's family's firm. The next day, her father withdrew his multi-million-dollar portfolio. Ethan became a pariah overnight, losing his fiancée, his reputation, and costing his family's business millions. Tom heard Ethan was quietly reassigned to a remote office in another state, a professional banishment. With her career in ruins and her brother, now a disgraced outcast, Sarah's world crumbled. Her friends who'd been quick to vilify me disappeared. They were drawn to her perceived status and the comfortable life I provided. When that vanished, so did they. She hired a lawyer to arrange the retrieval of her remaining belongings from a storage unit. My lawyer handled everything. Her lawyer tried to claim financial support, citing relationship-induced dependency. My lawyer responded with one line, "We possess video evidence of your client admitting to a conspiracy to commit fraud, which we'll present in court if you proceed." The claim was dropped that day. I sold the apartment. I couldn't stay in a place built on such a flawed foundation. With the proceeds, I bought a plot of land outside the city. For the past few months, I've been designing my own home from scratch, a project that's entirely mine, built on a foundation of integrity and self-respect. The most satisfying part wasn't watching them fall. It was knowing I trusted my instincts. I saw the fractures, analyzed the evidence, and acted decisively. I didn't let emotions cloud my judgment. I protected myself and my future from people who saw me as a tool to exploit, not a partner. They thought I was just the draftsman, a predictable plan they could use and discard. They were right about one thing: I'm a planner. And my final design was their complete, self-inflicted destruction, built with their own materials.